welcome aboard. We're sorry about the intro. We seem to have a PC-based problem this afternoon.
Yep.
But we're going to keep on going. So talk to me, Adam. Tell me about what's happening today.
Well, before we go any further, we need to do a little bit of housekeeping because we have a really great announcement. We're really excited about this.
Okay, well, tell me what this announcement is because I don't know it.
But Brent, we're really excited. We got to know about this. Ready?
Okay.
We made it to 1,000 subscribers.
Woohoo!
Everybody, thank you so much for subscribing to the video. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channels. It's really up to you guys for doing that, and gals out there. Hi, Ellen. And thank you so much for that. It means a lot to us. We are continuing on with it. We're going to shoot and continue to grow. We're shooting for 2,000 next. We're going to make it. We're going to get there with it. So we're very, very
And we're going to get
monetized
monetized so he can make at least 1/10 of a cent a month.
Maybe eventually I'll make some money around here, right? Okay.
I like your attitude.
Well, you know, things can work out at some point. Anyways, all that to say, Brent, let's see if we can get... Hey, there, it's working. Great. Okay. Now, today's episode.
Wait, before we get to today's episode, don't forget, subscribe,
Yep.
like, check on us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Yep. Subscribe.
Send us your email, send us your money.
Yep. Hit that little bell notification to let you know whenever we do go live, which is every Wednesday at 3 p.m. But it'll also let you know when we go and launch other videos that we release for you all as well.
And there's a lot of those coming up recently.
There's a lot of videos coming up. We have a lot planned. We just had some great trainings for here in the tech support side. Great information that we really want to get out to you all out there in the fields. So definitely hit that little bell notification to let you know when we launch those videos. So as always, if you all have any questions or comments, or if you have a story you want to tell us, please leave it down in the chat while we're live today. If you have the questions, comments, or whatever after we have already gone live and you're watching this after the fact, leave it down in the comment section. We do monitor the comment section so that we will get back to you as soon as we possibly can in that section. So leave your questions, leave your comments. If it has nothing to do with what we're talking about today, that's perfectly fine. But today, Brent.
Today, Adam.
Today, we are talking about something specific.
And what are we talking about today, Adam?
Well, we're going to talk about Hdbaset.
Again?
Yes, again.
Because there's a lot to know.
There is a lot to know. And I'll be honest, after some of the trainings that we took and we learned on, there's actually even more. And so we're going to do today's lessons today, and it's going to be kind of a refresher with everybody to give you more tech tips on how to troubleshoot some Hdbaset problems, also how to terminate and how to make sure that you have a good system, and when and where to use Hdbaset.
And why it's a better choice than some of the less expensive extenders.
Yes, definitely. So, without further ado, let's figure it out.
Jump into it, Adam.
All right,
now,
so
you've been here doing most of the training because I've been off on some personal errands this week, so go for it.
All right. So the first question we have to ask is, what is Hdbaset? Let's see if I can get it to come up. And first question, there we go. What is Hdbaset? So Hdbaset is actually a standard that was released by 4 companies. One, Valens, who is the actual chip manufacturer of the Hdbaset chipset, but also 3 major video companies. One of them being Samsung, the other one being LG. Actually, LG was the primary one at that point, but LG, Samsung, and Sony were the 3 primary people who adopted it and also put money into it to get it started. So,
and there's actually a 4th company that we don't even discuss anymore that Valens bought out.
Yes, and so at this point we have those 4 primary companies right now. We have Valens, the ones that make it, and then of course we have everyone else who is supporting it and making items for it. So, with that, with Hdbaset, there's a couple things that that it is. So Hdbaset, essentially, it's not. It used to be just like an HDMI product. It's now turning out to be much more than that. They're actually reaching out into areas of medical equipment. They're looking into automotive.
Well, automotive's not new.
It's been around for a while, right? They've been using it. In fact, I think even Daimler, Chrysler, and their
because they're using it not for video,
Mercedes,
but as a data bus, because they're using it on a single pair versus multiple pairs, so that they don't need the bandwidth, but what they need is the speed and the ability to deal with complex data.
Right. So they are using that. And by the way, everybody, make sure you can hear us. Let us know in the chat below if you guys can hear us. We're using a different microphone today. It's kind of a test.
Somebody forgot to go pick the microphone up from Boccaccio last week when he drove away with it.
So if you can hear us, let us know that you guys can hear us okay. Anyways,
if you can't hear us okay, tell us.
Well, either way, yeah. Well, I think we would have heard them complaining about that by this point. Anyways, Hdbaset, essentially what it is, it's a way for us to transmit HDMI over category wire. Now, specifically, if we look at the actual requirements by Hdbaset or the specifications, you are supposed to use it on Cat 6 at minimum. It works on Cat 5 because Cat 5 is still capable of being within the specifications of what Hdbaset has, but the specifications call for Cat 6. So
it also called for the ability to send 100 watts originally.
And they're still calling for that, and technically it does if you use the right chipset for it. Now, Hdbaset was going to use it for the purpose of commercial applications where you would have displays throughout long distances, and the display would actually get its video connection and its power all from one category
PoE type connection.
Exactly, and so it would just be an RJ45 on the back of the.
Never happened, but
well, there's a couple of units out there. I think who is it? I think it's LG has a couple units out there that are just only for commercial applications, and there's a couple others that manufacture them as well. Thanks, Jim. Really appreciate that. Jim lets us know that we're loud and clear.
Thank you, Jim.
Now, I don't know. You could be loud, but I'll be clear. How about that?
Okay.
Okay. Come on, it's a good joke, right? It's,
well, I'm loud regardless. I mean, it's not like there's a joke there.
Well, there's that.
I just am loud.
Stating the obvious is different than a joke, I guess. So, that's what Hdbaset is. It's really just a platform for us to take an HDMI signal, convert it over to a category wire
DVI.
or DVI signal. Actually, now you can even get into VGA, DVI, HDMI, composite, component, MHL. You can transmit a heck of a lot of information down that one category wire. Now, there's, of course, everyone talks about how you have the Hdbaset 1.0 and now Hdbaset 2.0, which is kind of a misnomer. It's more of a VS 1000 versus VS 2000.
Well, it didn't start that way. Honestly, it started, and it was a bit of a misnomer, particularly as HDMI 2.0 was released.
Right.
They assumed that HDCP 2.0, or excuse me, Hdbaset 2.0 would be in a line, and originally it wasn't. It was still a 10.4, but it was expanded feature sets.
Right.
The idea is you could, in fact, the original goal of 2.0 was to treat it like distributed network video, AV over IP.
Right.
Did not happen that way, but that was the original stipulated intent.
So I'm glad you brought that up. One of the big misconceptions that we have with Hdbaset is the fact that they see the fact that it runs down a category wire, and so the assumption is that, oh, it's an IP-based
system. It's a network backbone.
It's not. Hdbaset is not Ethernet.
And now we have had people call in, or they have connected them to Ethernet switches.
And probably burned out the switches or burned out the extender at that point, because while it does in some cases use the same, I believe it uses the same PoE twisted pair for power, but I believe you can actually still damage it if it's hooked up to a different way. Don't do it. Just be aware, Hdbaset, don't use it in your network. Don't hook it up to your network equipment. It's not meant for that. It's not a video over IP system. So, yeah, definitely watch out for that.
Yeah, don't do that.
So one of the other things that we have to look at with Hdbaset is, let's see if it comes up. And did I go too far? I think I went too far. Hey, is it gonna do it? And there it is. How does Hdbaset work?
How does that work?
It doesn't, apparently.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah, apparently it doesn't work.
So tell me how Hdbaset works, since we know that's not.
All right, so Hdbaset, essentially what it does is it's going to take the information from an HDMI signal and it's going to packetize that. Basically what it's going to do is it's going to take all the information for, say, a portion of a single frame. It's going to take all that information, it's going to condense it and compress it down into a single packet. We're going to take all this information, all the crap that's on the table here, we're going to put it inside of a single box. We're going to take that box and we're going to ship that box down the road.
And how do we ship that box?
Well, when you look at the differences between Hdbaset 1.0 and Hdbaset 2.0, you do it one of two ways. It's actually very similar. Well, it uses the same transmission technology as Ethernet, and it uses a very similar transmission concept, what's called PAM, or post amplitude modulation. No, I got that wrong. It's amplitude modulation, and what it does is you have a 5 EQ
packet amplitude.
Packet, thank you. Yes,
I was waiting.
I know, it was almost there. So we have the PAM5, which is a 5-channel basically amplitude modulation.
And how does a 5-channel modulation work over an 8-conductor wire?
So that's where things get, for myself, a little interesting. That's where I still have a lot to learn. And honestly, I think we should do another episode on Hdbaset with that information.
Because now we're at PAM 10.
We're at PAM 16.
PAM 16?
Yes, we jump all the way up to PAM 16. So essentially...
But that's with the 3000 chip.
Yes. So it from what I understand and have been able to glean the information for it so far, which feel free to do research on yourself on this as well. The Hdbaset Alliance, if you go to their website, hdbaset.org.
There's some good white papers.
Oh, it's great white papers, and I'm like a quarter of the way through some of them, and there's so much information for it. But Wikipedia is also a really great resource for this. I believe Wikipedia is still stuck on an older version of Hdbaset.
They are.
So if anybody's out there that wants to update the Hdbaset Wikipedia page, definitely go there. But it's a great resource because they have a lot of the references of where it's at and some great reading material for that. But essentially, understanding the way that it works is we use packet amplitude modulation. Or I want to say post. I keep saying post. But what it is essentially is we take one lane of road and we split it up into either 5, which would be the PAM 5, or 16 now, PAM 16. Now, what that does then is it allows us to send, it's a differential of voltages on the line. So yeah, right? And so we have a single signal, oh shoot, I'm forgetting exactly what it's called, but basically when you have a contact closure, when you close it, that's one piece of information. When you open it, that's another piece of information.
It's a switch. It's a
right?
binary switch.
It's open close.
Right.
Now with the differential, the voltage differential way of communication, what that's actually doing is it's reading a differential in voltages. So when we see something that says -5 volts at this amplitude, that actually means that it's a certain type of piece of information. When we see a +5 volts, and now 5 volts is just a random number that I'm pulling out of the air, don't use that necessarily, or 0.5 volts, well that's a different piece of information at a different amplitude. So all this information, these 16 channels, are using this differential in information as they're sending the information all the way across. Now what's really interesting is they actually transmit and change different voltage levels in different lanes. So you get completely different information. When you get all the way to the very end of it, it actually winds up looking like a checkerboard by the time it gets to the very end of it. So, really cool thing about all of that and how it does that is interesting, because when it gets to the very end, it uses that checkerboard because inevitably, we all know this, when you send a big swath of information from from a transmitter to a receiver, inevitably you're going to lose some of it. So the best way that I've learned to describe this is actually kind of interesting. You use, if you've ever used a QR code, if you take a QR code and you blow it up large enough to where you can manipulate it, and you cover up part of it with your hand, and you still use your QR code reader like on your phone or something, what will happen is that it will still be able to scan it and get the correct information, even though it looks like you're covering up part of the information. You're not. Because it's modulated inside of the entirety of the system, and it's able to recreate that missing information
and there's redundant data.
So you get redundant data out of it. So that's how, go to the next slide, right? That is how does Hdbaset solve the long distance problem?
Well, that also has to do with the chipsets, because different chipsets will operate at different distances.
Correct.
Which is why you have 70s, 100s, 120s.
Right. So, for instance, we had Hdbaset 1, or VS, it's the VS010 chipset, if I remember correctly. That one was able to do 4K 30 at 40 meters.
Yes.
And then it was able to do 1080p at 70 meters.
Yes, and then there was a chip before that that went all the way out to 100.
Right.
With Ethernet even.
Yes. So now we jump forward to the VS1000, and the VS1000 can do 4K 60 at 70 and can do 1080p at 100. Now, that's where things get kind of interesting, because we have a unit, we have an Hdbaset extender that can go 120 meters with 4K. So
with the HDR and all the good stuff.
That comes down to bandwidth. So this is where things get interesting. So as we look at the problem, here we go. I'm going
to let you do the drawing?
Yeah, I'm explaining some stuff today. Again, guys, there's some really great material out there to learn about all of this, and I really recommend anybody who's using Hdbaset on a daily basis or on any kind of jobs out there, definitely look up the information out there and see if you can glean as much information as possible. I'm trying to bring this to you and also to myself so we can learn it together with this. And so as I learn things, I want to bring all that information to you as well, and we'll continue to do that. Like I said, I want to do another episode on this because there is just so much information. Let's see here. I want to go down here real quick.
I'm going to step back here and maintain my social distance from you.
There you go. Okay, so make sure I hit the right button here, and we'll do the top-down shot. Okay, so when we are looking at bandwidth.
Sure, you want to use the black?
Oh, is the black working? There it is. Yeah, we're good. Okay, so when we are looking at bandwidth, what we have is we have our lane of information. So in our lane of information, let's say we'll go to right like that. So pretend that this is a PAM2. So with a PAM2, we have 2 lanes of information. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I have now doubled my bandwidth. What that means then is that the packets can now have the opportunity to send it down 2 different lanes of information. So here's what happens. Our HDMI signal, we have, let's say we have a full 18 gigabits per second signal of some kind. So we're doing 4K, 60, and we're doing 422, right? 422, we can get away with that. HDR, we can do HDR on that. Yeah, 10-bit.
Remember, HDR writes in the metadata.
Right, which we're doing 10-bit.
Right.
Can we get away with 10-bit on that? Let's do 10-bit.
Now, the 10-bit doesn't write in the metadata, the HDR does.
No, correct. So the HDR writes in metadata, which is an entirely other episode that I think we need to take on as well. So, with all of that involved, what's happening here at this point is we are actually needing to get all of this information, 18 gigabits worth of information, down to the amount that this pathway is able to actually handle it. So we use something called a DSC, display stream compression. We use a DSC, thank you. So a DSC, so display stream compression. Now there are multiple
versions of compression.
Yes.
We've effectively co-opted the one that's built into HDMI 2.1.
Yes.
Because it's a very good compression scheme, one of the most modern compression schemes out there, and it's designed to have very minimal perceived video loss.
Right. So what we are doing then is we are taking that 18 gigs and we are compressing it down to, if I remember correctly, we're going all the way down to a 9 or an 8. No, we're going all the way down to 8 gigabits per second. And the reason that we're doing that is because we're going down to 6. Thank you, gentlemen, off screen over there. So what you all don't see is we have Stuart, and we have a guest with us today that I'm not at liberty to disclose who he is yet.
Mostly Stuart.
Mostly Stuart. And so they are giving us information on that, so we really appreciate it. But we're going all the way down to 6 gigs of bandwidth on that compression. And the reason that we do that is because Cat 6 is really only rated currently at 10 gigs at the highest. And that, of course, depends a lot on the length of the cable and the quality of it. So we want to bring it down to 6 gigs. So once we bring it down to 6 gigs, we then can take that data and we packetize it. So we're going to put all the video information over here, and we're going to now take it and put it inside of a little packet, and we're going to send these packets over on this bandwidth. And what that's going to do is, as it goes across here, it's going to get to the other side. The receiver on the other side is going to take the information out of the packet, and it's going to give it back out. It's going to unpack that information and display it back out on an HDMI connection. So that is essentially how Hdbaset is working and how it's going to get its information all the way across that. So Brent, if I can, sorry.
Yes, sir.
All right. So when we get everything all the way across there, to compress it into the packets down to 6 gigabits per second.
Yes.
Compress it into, or then break it apart into the packets and send those packets across. It also does something other kind of interesting.
Yes, sir.
It has bandwidth a gap. Well, it has EQ, but it has actually a little bit of space above that 6 gigs to make for headroom.
More than a little bit of space, because there's an additional 3 gigs there. Because
3 or 2?
Remember we're at 9.2.
Oh, correct. Yes. So that headroom.
They actually rated it 10.2, but.
And yeah, and that headroom is there not necessarily because we're trying to fill that space for that, but really it is.
There's other stuff to go there.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that extra space, that extra stuff that's there is actually that QR code system where when you are missing information, it's going to refer back to that little piece of information up top, and it's going to say, oh, okay, let's recreate that data and send it back out. So that's how. And
the system works very well.
Yeah, it does. It works really, really well. As always, everybody, I know this is a lot of information, and I'm still learning it myself. Like I said, I want to do another episode on this, so if you have questions along the way, put it in the chat, put it down in the comments below. That way, when we do another episode on Hdbaset, I have more questions to answer if I can't answer them right now, or if I can't answer them between now and then. But That's how Hdbaset works and how it's going to go the distance.
Now, how do you make sure it works correctly on your job site?
Okay, so this is where it gets kind of tricky. Well, not really tricky because you just need to follow a couple tenets of information.
What's the first thing to consider on your job site?
Termination.
Infrastructure.
Well, infrastructure, yes, correct, yes.
Which means when you're pulling your wire,
Yep.
avoid 110.
Yep. Yep.
Don't pull it too hard.
Yep.
Don't pull it around rafters hard. Don't pull it around metal plates.
Yep.
Treat it just like you would any 10 gig network system.
I think we did an episode almost a year ago now where the topic of the episode was respect the wire.
Yep.
Because truly, if you don't respect that wire and you send it out there and you're going to give it troubles,
You're not going to have a good stable system.
you're not going to have a good stable system.
The number one issue that we take tech support is infrastructure. Now, infrastructure is not just the wire, it is the termination that Adam mentioned first. But it's how you treat the wire, how you pull the wire,
Yep.
and ultimately, particularly with any kind of extenders, how you terminate the wire.
Yep. 100% how you terminate the wire. Well,
Termination is very critical. What do you not do?
Well, one of the biggest things you don't want to do is you don't want to use the wrong type of terminations. And when I say that, I don't mean 568A or 568B. Technically, it's the same. Although
Yeah, we're not going to get into that argument.
Hdbaset does put in their spec 568B.
Why?
Because they need to put something in there, or else they're going to get the questions about
Yep.
what to use. Because we didn't do it at first, and we got questions about which one to use. So now we say 568B. But in most cases, if you're out there, you're going to run into 568B. Everyone else has pretty much been trained on that, as that's the thing to use. So you have that there. But when it comes to the termination, you need to make sure that you use a good quality termination. One, don't use the pass-through style terminations.
Why?
Because the pass-through style has a couple things wrong, a few things wrong with it.
They're not wrong, they're just not right.
Sure. So, yes. What happens is when you put your termination in there, or when you feed your wires through it, the tool that you use to actually cut and crimp at the same time, what happens is the blade that actually is cutting that is after a short amount of time, it doesn't take very long at all, it dulls. And instead of cutting the wire, what happens is it becomes pulling the wire. And so what's going to happen is if you pretend my hand here is actually the tooth, or
Ooh, I'm going to like to do this.
oh boy, here we go. So if you pretend that my hand here is the tooth that
Where's the
actually gets
hammer?
pressed into, it gets pressed into the wire in there, what will happen is that as it's cut and pulled through, it's going to pull that tooth forward. It's going to shear it off, but now you have a tooth that's now
It's not a
cockeyed.
clean shear, and it draws in the wire and thins it out.
Exactly. Draws in the wire, thins it out, pulls that tooth forward, so you don't get a good, nice, secure cut into it. So that's problem number one. Problem number two, it's an open end.
Yep.
This is the same reason why we recommend don't use punch-down terminations when it comes to Hdbaset. And the biggest reason for that is simply because they're open-ended. The second reason for that, of course, is because the punch-down terminations are usually...
Consistency of quality.
It's consistent quality, but also the length of the wires in there, even though it's half an inch or a quarter of an inch or a couple
An eighth of an
millimeters,
inch or 16th of an
it's
inch.
still enough difference in there that it makes a difference on the
Timing.
connection. It changes the timing.
Yep.
Thank you. And there was one other thing that I can't remember what. Oh, you got to be careful. This is not only for one particular brand, it's also for another brand, and we're not going to call out names. But it's usually you can buy them at large hardware stores.
Comes in a blue and white package.
Yeah. The internals where the actual wire goes inside, it's a little oversized.
Hot dog
and
in the
so
hallway.
It will move laterally side to side as you try to make the termination. And what happens is your termination will go in and it's going to miss that, or it's going to touch it and it's going to make the connection, but it's
not enough.
only just touching it. It's not actually making the connection secure. So it's actually the same thing when you go to if you were to take a speaker wire and you take one strand out of that speaker wire and make the connection there, you're going to have continuity, which means, oh, cool, I used my tester, I got continuity, everything looks fine, which that's what our response, that's what many responses are whenever we bring this up.
I throw my tester on there, it looks great. It's like, Mr. Customer, how much was your tester?
Yeah,
I got it going, it was $200.
yeah.
How much money do you need to spend to get one that's actually going to test?
Was it roughly $3,000 or
Roughly.
two to $3,000 or something?
Now,
like
there
that?
is a piece out there now
Down
that actually does quite a bit of this. Now, this is not from us.
No.
So, however, as a company that provides and sells these products and does tech support for them, not the tester, this is an Hdbaset testing system.
Now, going to the continuity. With the continuity, if you are to, if you don't get a good secure connection, you may still get continuity, but you don't get full bandwidth pass-through on that. Go into the speaker wire thing. The problem you run into is that if you run 150 watts through one single strand of speaker wire,
it's going to melt.
It's going to melt.
It ain't going to last.
And that's what's going to happen. This piece is great. This is from a company called M Solutions. It's actually great. They're a company out of Israel. And
next door to Valens.
Yep, yeah, right next door to Valens. Actually, literally across the street from Valens. But they produce this device here, which is the MS Test Pro. And what it does, it actually will allow you to certify cable runs. So you can actually make the connection on one end and put the Hdbaset receiver on the other side. It will verify and make sure that that run will work with Hdbaset. It'll give you a readout, give you a quality level on that, show you distance and everything else. And it's a great piece. And this one here, I think is in the ballpark of about $3 grand for that.
It is $3 grand. There are some additional pieces you can get with it. And again, we don't sell this. But one is the DC resistance, which looks at noise that is trying to walk over your system.
Right.
And back to the infrastructure statement, everybody at some point or another has dealt with the light switch that blanks out the video.
Right.
Now, why is it blanking out the video?
Well, it's basically it's emitting an RF blast of some sorts that is walking over your Hdbaset signal across the
Is the Hdbaset signal gone?
No, it's still there. It's just the EM blast is louder, or it's more powerful than what's on the line, and so it's just overpowering it.
Exactly. So that's why it typically comes back. There are some times, in a few cases, particularly with non-Hdbaset extenders,
right,
where it will just lock up the receiving unit, where the receiving unit just got so much data and it just locks up, and the only way to fix it is to power cycle it.
Right.
Typically Hdbaset will reset.
Yes.
But it's not a matter of things being gone, it just can't be heard.
Right. So, the last bit of information that I have for us today is actually talking about when should we use Hdbaset versus HDMI. So, this is kind of a tricky one, because, and this also comes into play in infrastructure. So, with Hdbaset, there's a couple things in the specifications. It has a limit for the maximum distance, but technically it has a limit for a minimum distance. Now, you can get away with a little bit on the minimum side, because usually your terminations are not going to be as great, so that's going to help attenuate that line. But by specifications, you should not be under 20 meters. So that for everybody here in the States, that's about 60 feet. So if you are doing a run from a source device to a display and you are under 60 feet, run an HDMI cable. We have a solution. Extender. Yeah, with an extender.
Our fiber.
Yeah, we have a solution for that. The solution for us right now, give us a call. We have our install bay fiber AOC, which is a fiber optic HDMI cable. We also have our VLOX, our new VLOX 48 gigs.
And the 20 meters is a standard.
Yes.
However, the reality of it is typically you can get away with 15.
Yeah, 15. The problem you're going to run into is about 45
a safe
feet.
number.
Yeah, about 45 feet at that point. So, rule of thumb, if you're converting between feet and meters,
3 to 1.
3 to 1. So for every 1 meter, it's 3 feet. So 15 meters, about 45 feet. That's usually
a safe
where
number.
Yeah, it's a safe number. You kind of have that little area there to play with if you can.
But we get calls at 15 and 20 feet, and it just isn't going to work.
No, basically what's happening is if I was standing right here and I was screaming at you the entire time, eventually your ears are going to start ringing and you're going to hate yourself for standing that close.
That's how I talk.
We traded roles right there. That
we
was
certainly
great.
did.
Man, that was fun. Okay.
Yeah, did you enjoy yelling at me?
That was great. All that to say,
yes, dear.
Make sure your runs are are within that range. If you can, do the 20 meters, do 60 feet, and then of course your maximum depending on what chipset you're using, it could be anywhere from 70 meters to 100 meters, or with our new Hdbaset extender, we have 120 meters on 4K 60, 18 gigs, which is great. Now,
let me ask you about the future.
Let's go into the future, Brent.
2.1's coming.
Yeah.
I mean, it's here, but it isn't. But
yeah.
It's coming. Do we have a future with Hdbaset in the future?
Yes. It's on its way. They're being fairly tight-lipped on how and what it's going to do with their manufacturers they work the closest with. I'm sure they're finding out solutions and whatnot. But we are looking at a entirely new board level design for everything, an entirely new chipset. We have the VS3000 series that they announced probably 2 years ago, I think, or a year and a half ago, I think.
However, the quality of your work is going to have to go up.
Yes, and so you are definitely going to want to look at devices where you can certify your cable runs to make sure you're going to get the distance out of it that you need.
You probably, this is not a joke, sadly, for the AV industry versus the network industry, you probably want to go take a class on 10G networking.
10G networking, also there are classes out there for Hdbaset, and what to look for and what to do on those as well. Avixa, which is the Infocom umbrella company for them, they have some great trainings out there. There's a couple others out there as well. Just do a search out there, reach out to your reps for just different distributors in different areas.
What wire do they want to pull for the future?
Cat 6A is really what it's looking out to be right now. So we've, of course, we have Cat 6A as well.
And you do need the correct Cat 6A terminals.
Yes, you do.
Now, the Cat 6A terminals are not near as tough to do as the original. Our versions of them are not near as tough as the original.
Right.
Cat 6A. It's a very simple, and you have a great video on it.
I had a great time making that video, actually. Definitely check it out. It's on the YouTube channel. I always love making these videos anyways. Now, Brent, what do we do when we need to go past the distance of an Hdbaset extender?
Well, right now we do fiber.
Right.
And fiber will continue to be the cost-effective solution. Hdbaset on the next version will be a transceiver product.
Yeah.
Instead of being two separate chips, it'd be a unified transceiver chip. What that means is you could actually put a unit in the middle with minimal loss.
Yeah.
However, the cost to do that goes up dramatically, and you also have to have power and all these other things involved in that.
Right.
Fiber is a better solution, whether it's a existing AOC that's already terminated.
Yep.
You pull it out there, and when technology goes beyond where we are today, tomorrow, the near future anyway,
Yep.
you cut the end off and you move forward.
Yep.
You just treat it as you would any other extender.
Yeah. Yeah, you cut the end off, put actual fiber terminations
Whether
on
it's
the
LC,
internal
ST,
fiber.
whatever it becomes at the time.
Yep.
And you move forward.
Yeah.
So that is a very viable solution. However, the advantage of an Hdbaset system is the ability to lay the wire in now.
Yeah.
And short of somebody stepping on it in the attic or putting a staple through it, know that you're fairly safe.
And that's going to come down to something that we should probably do a video
Conduit.
on. Conduit. But doing how to install and run different cabling. And actually, that would be a great episode. If you guys think that would be a good episode for us to do, leave it down in the chat. Let us know if that's what you want us to do. Hey, Umesh, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us in the chat. As always, everybody, if you have questions for what we're talking about, I know that today was a fairly intense and a lot of information. I'm learning a lot of stuff right now.
Well, mostly it's fun to watch you carry the load.
Well, and it happens, right? Every once in a while, I gotta kind of.
Well, and
let's take a break, right?
coming up, so I'm just gonna stand here.
Yeah, we got a lot of information coming up on that.
I'll be the question guy.
By the way, everybody, we do have some great episodes coming up. As always, every Wednesday at 3 p.m. we launch our live stream. So feel free to check in with us every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Pardon me.
Right, we've got networking coming up.
Yep.
We've got.
Let's see. We've got networking coming up. We've got a fiber video coming up here in a little bit. We have a oh gosh, there's one other one.
You
that I missed.
did this. You
I know
wrote
I
these
did. I know I did.
descriptions.
I'm still. See, here's what happened. We had a training.
What happened
was we had a training on Hdbaset yesterday, and you know what I did? I stayed up until about 1 o'clock, deep diving into a lot of information that. And then eventually, when I finally got to a certain point that I was falling asleep at my desk, I realized, you know what? I should probably go lay down and go to bed. And so my mind is still reeling with all the different possibilities for Hdbaset and things that we're looking at in the future. I'll be honest, the things that we're looking at here for what we're developing are going to be great. We're really excited about it. It really is. We're looking at solutions for things that we see coming down the pipe because of the fact that we are going up into 48 gigs, which now we're learning.
It's only 40.
It's only 40.
At least in the near future.
Yeah, it's like the Xbox One, the Xbox Series X, the PS5,
PlayStation 5.
Yeah, PlayStation 5.
And all the current televisions are all running the same 40 gig.
The 40 gig chipset, which I believe was a.
Don't say it.
We don't know
Don't
yet.
say it.
Don't say it. Don't say it. Okay. Stay tuned.
However, if you, with a little bit of proper infrastructure planning, and please call Adam or myself, and we will help you lay this planning out, you are well prepared for the future. It's not a panic situation. The thing to remember is, if you go out and you buy 8K anything right now, it's a lot like the original 4K products.
Yes.
You may not be able to support the next iteration of HDCP. You may not be able to support what's happening. Oh, this is the other one coming up, Dynamic HDR.
Oh yes, dynamic HDR. That was another thing that we learned about this.
More of.
You and I just need to have a gossip episode where we just kind of gossip about the different things that are coming up and that are going to be a pain in the butt for us.
But they're fun.
Yeah. So there's, we are doing a Spyclops episode on megapixels. That's what's coming up. I had to look it up real quick to verify.
Not decapixels, megapixels.
No, megapixels. So, which we'll talk about that. I think that's actually
2 weeks.
I think it's either 2 weeks or next week, one of the two. So definitely check back on that. So. Does anybody have any questions or anything? If you all have questions or comments or anything you want to ask us while we're here live, definitely leave it down in the chat section below. If you have any questions or comments after the fact and you're watching this after the recorded message, leave it down in the comment section. We do monitor that and watch on that. But like I said,
tell your friends, your neighbors, your parents.
Yeah.
Sign up and subscribe.
We're shooting for 2,000 subscribers. So
we're greedy.
Again, thank you so very much for everyone who has subscribed. We really appreciate it. We owe it to you for what we've gotten so far, and now we're shooting for the 2,000 mark. So, Brent, that was a pretty quick episode. That was kind of a shotgun episode for us today. Do you have any news from the industry for us? Anything that's kind of jumped out at you?
Nothing that I can share today.
Nothing you can share today. Okay. Now,
we talked about the Sony input last week.
Yes, we did. We talked about the Roku, how they're now getting AirPlay 2 added to it on the 4K units. I don't think anything's really...
There's nothing else we're in a position to share yet.
Yeah, there's some great stuff happening behind the scenes.
It's very exciting. It's actually good for the industry.
Yes, so keep an eye on this video or this channel here for the next couple weeks. Hopefully we can actually get that information out to them. In the next couple weeks?
Maybe.
Maybe?
Maybe.
Yeah. So, Brent, we took a tech call today.
Did we?
Yes, we did.
I wasn't here.
Well, you were. So this was...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
I was.
So this gentleman had a... let's talk about tech calls. We had a gentleman who called in who had a Sony...
950H.
950H. I got my notes here for it as well. He had a Sony 950H. He was using...
Marantz something 15 series.
7015. And he had a Kaleidoscape. Now, he also had other sources as well. He had an Apple TV 4K, an Xbox One X, and he had a Samsung UHD 4K, a UHD Blu-ray player. Now, he was using a competitor's HDMI cable.
But it's a good cable.
But it's a decent cable, so we won't talk too much about that. But here's the problem the client was having. And actually, I'm going to put this out to you all. Don't answer this right away. Why would the client be complaining about white flashes on the display when watching the Kaleidoscape? So let's you and I kind of discuss this a little bit and break down how we found how we got to a certain point of deciding what is primarily happening here.
And what we think is happening.
Yeah. So first, of course, we went through, we found all the equipment. Now, nothing else was happening on the other sources from what the client was claiming. Now, of course, this is very important because you may need to get with your client and find out for sure, are you only noticing it on this source? Or are you just paying more attention to this one? Or is it really happening on all of them? Or is it really not happening on all of them?
And part of it was that the customer was doing the skip around on the K-scape, where you watch a little bit, you go to another movie, watch a little bit, go to the other movie.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool because the K-scape does have the best picture of anything out there.
Yeah, and they have that really cool feature where you can kind of make your own playlist of scenes. It's really great for guys who like to pick apart movies and do different, scene breakdowns and whatnot. It's really great for that.
So it's actually, there were two problems. One of them made sense to me. The other one I'm still curious about, and we're going to look into that.
So let's actually talk about the second problem, because I'm putting it out here. If anybody can think about it, let me know what you think.
First problem is white flashes.
Yeah, why do you think we were getting white flashes
on this system? They took the K-scape to other TVs.
Yep.
Did not do it.
Correct. So we're going to talk about the second problem that was going. Now, the K-scape also has a secondary audio HDMI output.
Yes, it does, which is an HDMI 1.4 port.
Now, this one is actually interesting because we don't have a solution for this one yet. We don't have a.
We don't know why it's happening.
Yeah, we don't know why. We haven't resolved the problem here. Now, on the Kaleidoscape secondary output, when they had that plugged into the Marantz, he had no audio whatsoever.
Right, because he bypassed the Marantz for the video.
Yep.
So he figured, okay, I'll go straight to the display.
Yep.
And I'll run audio from the audio-only port into the Marantz,
Yep.
and he got no audio at all.
Right.
Now he took the Kscape to other systems in the house and got audio.
Yes.
Now he also tried the same thing with the Samsung player that had the dual output.
Yes. So the Samsung player, it's the I didn't get the model number specifically because he wasn't
don't have
looking
that
at that
many
one,
of them.
but it was the 4K UHD, and
First gen.
that one was showing no problems except that the audio output, because he wanted to test it and see if maybe it was just the secondary audio output, if it was having a problem there. So it worked, but it gave the wrong audio.
Right, 2-channel audio.
So he was supposed to be getting Atmos audio on that output, which that unit is capable of Atmos.
Or claims
output.
it is.
Claims it is anyways. But he was only getting 2-channel audio. Now, my first thought went to, well, do you have the input on the Marantz set to 2-channel? Check that out. Nope, that wasn't it. Tried a different input because that Marantz also has the 2.1 input on it. So we thought, well, are you going to the 2.1 input? Nope.
Which can be problematic.
It can, as we learned last week for the Sonys. Now, he tried both the 2.1 input and the 2.0 inputs, and still the same problem on both the Kaleidoscape and the Samsung. So right now, we don't have a resolution for this.
No, we don't. And that one, the white flashes, I got a pretty good guess what I think it is.
Yes. So
But the audio one intrigues me.
yeah, because we're seeing that problem on 2 different devices, and so we're waiting on a call back from him when he gets on site.
Not today, unfortunately.
Not today, unfortunately. He is going out with one of our AIO2s, which is a great solution tool for different problems that are out there. It has the hot plug interrupt feature built into it for the little contact closure, where you can tie it into a control system or our IR kit CCUS.
Right.
We're also seeing it also has the Junior 3 capabilities in
With
it.
the capacitor stripping and the TMDS and 5-volt and hot plug voltage and current supplementation.
And it has that specific Kaleidoscape fix.
Yes, which is the voltage swing for 0.
Yes, so
Takes
that
it
way
down
it
to
actually
0.4
takes it down.
volts.
Yes, exactly. So if you all missed that episode, which is a great episode, check back on a couple episodes ago. We were talking about,
yeah.
I think that was on the TMDS episode, or was that EDIT episode?
That was the EDIT episode.
Yes.
Episode 2 of our
Of a 6-part series.
6-part series.
So definitely check that out because, but just a review on that with with HDMI, in order to get a 0 out of 1s and 0s, you are supposed to be under 0.9 volts.
Well, no. You are obligated to be above 4.7 to be a 1,
Gotcha.
but there's no obligation for a 0.
Okay.
The way it is written is anything under 0.9 volts may be,
Maybe.
not must be.
Right. So.
And the Kaleidoscape is 0.6.
And they're requiring it to be 0.6.
Yes.
So now, luckily with our Junior 3, of course, it has the feature
Takes it to
where it
0.4.
takes it to 0.4, so you can make it all the way down, even below what the Kaleidoscape is looking
which
for.
is a good solid door swing.
Exactly. So he's being sent out with the AIO2, and hopefully we can get feedback on that
Now,
and find out
what
what's
did we
going
tell
on with
him
it.
to do to check for the white flashes?
Okay, so here's what's going on with white flashes.
We think.
We think. He still has to get on the site and verify it, but white flashing on a display usually means that we have an over voltage of some kind that's happening to the system. Now, here's the thing. It can come in from different areas, but usually it's coming in from cable companies, either through the cable box or
The modem.
through the modem. A lot of times, especially with Kaleidoscape, you run into an issue, or they require you to be hardwired to the network because there's so much data that's coming
Right, when they're
across that.
downloading the content.
Exactly. And so the problem that we run into sometimes is that the voltage is actually coming in off the street.
And it's not a high, it's not like a spike or a surge.
Nope.
It's just little bitty
Just
bits.
a little bit. And what's happening is it's sending that voltage surge into the system across either the cable box or the modem, which in this case, my money is on the modem.
I would agree with you, which is why we ask him to disconnect the coax
Yes.
from both devices and watch a movie.
Yes. Now, he's going in from there. What would happen then is it's coming in across that Ethernet connection, hitting the Kaleidoscape. And then at that point, the Kaleidoscape, it doesn't know what to do with that voltage. It doesn't have a good grounding way to get rid of that voltage. So instead, unfortunately, it finds the best one, which in this case is
Video.
HDMI. Goes across that HDMI signal, hits the TV, and
TV
causes
just-
a flash.
right.
Now, what's interesting is it's every like 15 minutes, but that's great for capacitance buildup because usually capacitance buildup happens at a regular avenue. That's why we have capacitors. See, I'm learning, Brent.
Ooh. What does capacitance do?
It slows things down.
What does inductance do?
It speeds things up.
Damn.
See, I'm learning. What do you guys think? Am I learning pretty good? Let me know in the chat section. Thank you. Oh yeah, a comic book look says love this Kscape talk. Yeah, Kaleidoscape is a great
And
system.
you know, and it's interesting because actually, we're both big K-Scape fans.
I love Kaleidoscape.
And Kaleidoscape, they get picked on a little bit because it's a company that's very focused on doing it absolutely correct in a world that's focused on not doing it correct.
Yes.
And the problem is, the better you do it,
Yep.
can affect your application with products that don't do it that well.
Yes. Yes.
And it's frustrating when you plug an expensive product like that in,
Yep.
that it's built very, very well and
Yep.
correctly,
Yep.
and it doesn't work.
Yep.
Whose fault is it? Well, it works on a cheap Blu-ray player.
Yep.
Works on the cable box.
Yep.
Must be the Kaleidoscape. Well, no, it's not.
No, it's the system.
It's the system.
It's all
and
of it.
You have to look at the system traditionally for the problem, not the product.
I think we need to do another tech support or troubleshooting video. After what we learned in a lot of this
Infrastructure,
the infrastructure troubleshooting and whatnot, we learned a lot when it comes to troubleshooting. I think we need to do another episode on that to talk
Okay.
about the troubleshooting process, because we learned that, well, we knew beforehand, but we reiterated to ourselves
more detail
that it's not usually a single device that's the problem. It's the system
accumulation.
as a whole that causes the problem. So, all that to say, everybody, if you see a white flash on your screen, unplug your coax cable, unplug your Ethernet cable going to your modem.
Or the coax to the modem.
Or the coax to the modem.
Whichever's easiest.
Try it again and see if that white flashing comes back. If it does come back, we got a different problem. It's
Call
not
us.
coming from there.
If it doesn't come back until you plug the coax back in,
Call your cable company.
good luck.
Yeah. Yeah, good luck calling
Call
your
us
cable
and tell us how that goes.
Yeah, let us know if you're actually able to get through to them. We have maybe we'll start a wall of winners, the people that actually make it through to the cable company and get it fixed.
Now that'd be a small payout.
No, it would be. We're gonna have like one person up there,
Yeah.
and it may be like the one person that maybe works at the cable company. Anyway,
That'd be a small payout.
I'm venting now at this point. So, everybody, thank you again so much for checking in with us today. We really appreciate all of your help getting us up to 1,000 subscribers. I know I've said it like 3 or 4 times today, but thank you so very much. We are pushing.
We do truly appreciate it.
We really do. We're pushing for the 2,000 subscribers mark, so definitely check in with us and help us out with that. Spread the word, share, like, subscribe, send it out on Facebook, send it out on Twitter. Hit that bell notification to let you know when we do go live. Yeah, send us money. You know, we're
not proud.
Yeah, sure. Buy our
Chocolates.
stuff. Yep. Yep.
And support our sales staff, please.
Yeah, support our sales staff. So, Brent, as always, reboot early.
Reboot often.
Don't cut your wires too short. And call tech support.
Absolutely. And when you call tech support, remember, our day is probably worse than yours. Be nice.
So,
I'm gone for the next 2 days. I have
You
a
are
couple
gone for the next
personal
2 days.
days off, so
Yep.
have a great weekend.
I appreciate that.
I'm Brent.
I'm Adam.
Have a good one.
We'll see you later.
Your end credits scroll too fast.